That was great. Give me a clue at the beginning. I'll heckle you. What do you mean talking suitcases? Don't, Richard. Come on. No. Okay.
Don't tell me, man. It wasn't mine.
Yeah. See. Then we get the dialogue going. Okay. I'll know next time, Richard. Okay. The next reader we have tonight. I'm always so happy whenever I can do something with Kurt Heinzelman. I've been lucky enough to publish his translations in the magazine The Dirty Goat, as well as a book that he did. It's a wonderful translation of the French poet Jean Follin, and his original poetry is just stunning, of course, and that's what I'm hoping he'll share with us tonight. Kurt, of course, teaches at the University of Texas in the English department. He is the overseer of the Bat City Review. Make sure that Taylor Pate and all those people stay in line and produce the great work that the Bat City Review is. And it's just amazing. And he was my teacher too. So it's, part of the reason this story is here is because I started to like poetry because of Kurt, so thanks again for coming, Kurt, and welcome.
Thanks.
Thanks, Joe. Since this is the birthday of Malvern Books, I'm going to say something that you may already know, and I apologize if I'm repeating, if I'm being redundant. But there are a number of very good independent bookstores in the country. Not a large number, but a number. There's the Strand in New York, City Lights in San Francisco, Powell's Books in Portland, Oregon, Tattered Cover in Denver. But all of these wonderful independent bookstores still make their money by carrying commercially viable stuff. You know what I'm talking about. Young adult, cookbooks, children's books, travel, sport, books about celebrities, books by celebrities, poetry by Sapphire or Jewel. In one of these stores, I saw a bookcase higher than this one to the ceiling that had on it not poetry, but tragic life stories. It's like, I didn't know it was a genre. There are two things that make Malvern Books unique, I think, in the English-speaking world. And one is that there's nothing but fiction and poetry. It is a literary community. There are none of these other commercially, viable books. And secondly, almost all of the books, maybe all of the books here, are by small presses, small publications. And that, of course, it is small presses that feed American letters. Without small presses, without small journals like Bat City Review, we wouldn't have the kind of literary community that we have. And I'll just give you one quick timely example of this. The person who just won the Nobel Prize for Literature, Patrick Modiano, his books in English are published by a small press. They're the only ones, David Godine. Now, David is not as small as he used to be, but it's still pretty small. So we wouldn't have any of Modiano to read if it weren't for small presses. This is true across the board. So thank you, buddy.
Thanks.
Long may you live. Now, I wish to hell I had a poem celebrating small presses, but I don't. I do have a poem in celebration of small appliances. There it goes. It's called Ode to a Toaster. Ode to a Toaster. And it's written in these very, very short lines, which are meant to imitate Neruda's elemental odes. Now, when Neruda writes his elemental odes, he's writing about things that are elemental, like garlic, salt, lemons, hand-woven woolen socks, things that are really elemental. This is a toaster, ode to a toaster. It is not true Edison invented you before the light bulb, though who knows? Thermodiffusion, as from a switched coil, is less complex than incandescence, if less ancient than fire. You were my first gift to myself, costing not less than twice what you now do. And yet, I have lived without your apple-cheeked kind going on 30 years. Now, my father is dead. I will say he never knowingly told a lie, though he spoke sometimes of Edison as his contemporary, promoting for 30 years the power and light's electrification of rural America, and from time to time of you as the world's first small appliance. He kept, after my mother died, their old GE 4 slicer, a fire hazard with its worn cloth cord taped all the way down to its antique unsealed plug, but which still turned each slice a just brown right to the end when I gave it to Goodwill, along with his ready kilowatt tie clasp and matching cufflinks, things which had come to seem too odd to go on finding places for, as is the way, perhaps, with radiance and the things it raises to the power of air or light. Let me read a poem that's in a somewhat different vein. It's set in Austin, and it's about an unnamed person, but I'll tell you who the person is. It's my old friend Albert Goldbarth, who's a poet, publishes with small presses, and used to teach here at the University of Texas. About 90% of what happens in this poem is true. I met a very well-known poet a while back who said, "Everything in my poetry is true." And I wanted to say, as they say in Britain, pull my other one. I mean, come on. Poets use fiction just as much as prose writers do. But this one is mostly true. Sure. It's called Ground Wars. Fresh on the heels of another wound-red, sunset-gone hydrogen peroxide frothy, our friend came striding fresh from Chicago, barefoot across the manicured grounds of Immaculate Heart, a shaft of leftover moonlight taut as a brown trout hooked or a dowser's wand biting the dust. Showing through his torn, creative, rotting t-shirt, both hair and heart, his pockets stuffed with the Disney ducks in thumb-size, high-impact plastic, and a skeleton that lifts from its coffin to take the wooden nickel you've slipped it under the shroud, he was stopped by the cops and frisked. Call it trespassing, call it bad luck, but in our ventricle of this heart of Texas, men with badges don't cotton to those without shoes who look like someone with no ID. And so they booked him there where he stood, the St. Augustine grass sprouting beneath his soles, the lariat of a good word twirling in heat waves of air. When they pressed his fingers in ink, he listened to the far-off up and down sluicing of the long Gulf Coast of night. Released on his own recognizance, he stood underneath the I road, watching the whole length of MLK bleed beads of red, and bat-quick headlights scratch upon their hard edge Texas nightlife stars. I'm just going to read a few more. This is from my new book called Intimacies and Other Devices. And again, this is tonally quite different from the first two, I think. It's a mixed bag, but I hope you like it. It's called A Problem Explaining. Sometimes when I finish a painting, I mean, of course, not whenever I just finish painting, but when I finish, finally, really finish painting a painting, although I'm no longer actually sure I know exactly when I've done so, I feel like I could kiss myself. And then the next moment I'm thinking, maybe this is not what I ought to be thinking, which is what leads me to think I should be feeling like if I were to kiss myself, I would want it to be the way I would want to be kissing my wife, those times when she is really happy that I'm wanting to be kissing her. Which is always a bit of a problem, isn't it? Explaining. Sometimes she even tries painting that scene herself, that happy scene of herself wanting to kiss her more than I might be wanting to keep on painting that painting, which would begin to explain why I may not be able, as yet, to stop mixing my utterly unheard of colors up, why I can't stop myself long enough to listen to her trying to explain how I could learn from her how to finish whatever it is I am still painting, which, as she would likely remind me, I am doing, aren't I, really for her in the first place, after all? I've never painted anything. This poem is based upon a story, a routine that Lenny Bruce used to use. It's called Movie Day. Everybody here know what blue movies are? Yeah, okay. Does anybody here remember Lash LaRue, the great Western matinee, Saturday matinee, cowboy movie? Yeah. It's called Movie Day. And then there's the one about Lenny Bruce, taking his son to one of those grainy blue movies they had back then. Taking him once the kids' matinee was over, once the boys' Western starring Lash LaRue was done. And just like that, the boy is asking, what is that man doing with that pillow? Bet he's going to smother her, the way he did it, the way it happened in the other one. And Lenny? At first, he's daddy all over and just says, wait. But this boy is a boy who is not about to stop being a boy, about to stop asking anything anytime soon. So, why is he putting it under her like that, that pillow? It's a pillow, for Pete's sake. Why is he doing that? Is he going to kill her now? Sure, I bet he is, sure. Look at those hands. And Lenny? He's more Lenny now than father. Hey kid, shut up, okay? Just wait. And if the boy is dismayed by any of this, it is only as one who is about to discover such things as peaches in the world, clefts that soften, deepen into hemispheres. And look, he's now saying, look, he's kissing her all over the place. There, look, and there, and even there. And Lenny? What he's doing more of now is thinking, or what looks like thinking, or whatever it is we do when our lips are moving, but nothing is there to be said by us. No one is there to speak for us. Let me conclude with this newish one. Remember after the downing of the Malaysian Airlines near Donetsk by, let's face it, pro-Russian separatists. Remember there were no survivors. Remember the picture of the fields in which the plane went down? There were fields of sunflowers, nothing but sunflowers. So this poem is in memoriam to those lost souls. It's called Bodies Fallen in Fields of Sunflowers. Once in full bloom, their faces stop turning to follow the sun. Their stems are rough and hairy, but their flowers daisy-like, for really they are members of the aster family, like those reddish ones there in that white bowl. 3 millennia before Christ, America's native peoples cultivated these flowers of the sun they thought more important even than corn. Their Spanish conquerors brought the seeds home to Europe. In the 19th century, the Tsar's botanist hybridized the commercially viable mammoth Russian sunflower, principally for its oil, judged acceptable to the Orthodox for Lent. Returned to the New World near the beginning of the American century, the plants were used as silage for hogs before their uses for humans were discovered anew. Driving near Gratiot in Wisconsin, I passed by field after field of them, sown in that sober 4-square prairie way, so that the road, turning always at right angles, left you unable to see above or around them. My father, seated beside me, was telling about our family, who came from a village in the kingdom of Württemberg, neither of which exists any longer, so many wars later. They were escaping Prussian conscription of their sons and hoping to land where bodies could stand tall as sunflowers amid amber waves of grain. Thank you.